Mara Whitfield picked my name out of a mixing bowl, looked me dead in the eye across her sister's crowded living room, and said, "Start the clock." Then she walked into the hall closet like she owned my nervous system. Everybody laughed. I didn't. Because Mara and I had been best friends for 2 years, and in all that time, she had never once looked at me like she was about to do something reckless. My name is Ethan Brooks. I was 24, working as a junior sound engineer at a small podcast studio in Portland, which meant I spent most of my life making other people sound confident while personally surviving on takeout, rent anxiety, and the kind of sarcasm that kept my mother worried. Mara was 27, a graphic designer with sharp bangs, sharper opinions, and this irritating ability to make every room adjust itself around her. Not because she was loud, she wasn't. Mara could lower her voice and somehow make people lean in like she was about to reveal the location of buried treasure. That night, she wore a rust-colored sweater, dark jeans, and boots with scuffed toes because she hated shoes that looked too optimistic. Her hair was pinned up badly on purpose, or maybe badly because she'd done it while arguing with someone. With Mara, those were equally likely. We were at her younger sister Paige's birthday party, which had started as wine, snacks, and board games, then somehow turned into grown adults recreating middle school party games with craft cocktails and lower back pain. I had been standing by the bookshelf trying to look amused instead of deeply threatened, when Paige clapped her hands and announced, "7 minutes in heaven." I said, "Absolutely not." Mara from the armchair said, "That's what people say right before their lives improve. That's what people say right before someone ends up explaining something to HR. We don't work together. I work with microphones. I know how confessions ruin people." She smiled into her glass. That was the problem with Mara. She smiled like she already knew the ending and was just waiting for me to catch up. I should explain something before you judge me for freezing in a living room full of adults eating spinach dip. Mara was not just my best friend. She was the person who noticed when I stopped talking in groups and rescued me by starting a ridiculous argument about whether soup counted as a beverage. She was the person who once drove 20 minutes to bring me a replacement shirt after I spilled salsa on myself before a client meeting. Not because I asked, but because she said, "You panic like a Victorian widow, and I can't watch it happen." She was the person who remembered that I hated being sung to on my birthday. So instead, she mailed me a single kazoo with a note that said, "For private humiliation only." I liked her before I admitted I liked her. Then I liked her so much I built a whole personality around not admitting it. There were reasons. For one thing, she was 3 years older, which mattered less in real life than it did in my head. For another, when we met, she had just gotten out of a long relationship with a guy named Travis, who treated every conversation like a debate he had already won. She was bruised in ways she joked around, and I was careful. Maybe too careful. By the time she healed enough to laugh without checking herself afterward, we were already us. Movie nights, errands, inside jokes. Her stealing fries from my plate without asking because, according to her, friendship is a tax system. Mia fixing the warped drawer in her kitchen because she refused to stop kicking it closed with her hip. Best friendship was safe. Wanting more felt like setting fire to the only house I trusted. So when Paige said my name after Mara drew it, and the whole room made that low, ooh sound adults make when they are pretending not to be 12, I laughed like a normal man with normal blood pressure. "Redraw," I said. Paige hugged the bowl to her chest. "No redos." Mara stood. The room shifted. She didn't look embarrassed. She didn't look drunk either. She looked calm. Too calm, like she had decided something before the game even started. "Mara," I said softly, a warning wrapped in a plea. She tilted her head. "What?" "You don't have to." Her eyes held mine for half a second longer than friendship required. "I know." That shut me up. She walked past me, toward the hallway. As she passed, her fingers brushed the inside of my wrist. Not a grab, not even a full touch. Just enough contact to send a stupid, bright current up my arm. I followed because apparently I had no survival instincts when she was within 10 feet. The closet was bigger than it looked from the outside, mostly used for coats, a vacuum, and 3 storage bins labeled by a woman who had given up halfway through. One said winter, One said Misk. One said, honestly, who knows? Mara stepped in first and turned around. I hovered at the threshold. Behind me, someone shouted, door closed or it doesn't count. Paige yelled, no cheating. I said, this is legally unenforceable. Mara reached past me and pulled the door shut. The latch clicked. The noise from the party became muffled, softened into laughter and bass from somebody's playlist in the living room. The closet smelled like wool coats, cedar blocks, and Mara's perfume, which was faintly smoky and sweet in a way that always made me think of late October and bad decisions. There was a narrow strip of light under the door, just enough to outline her boots near mine. We were close. Too close for people who had spent 2 years pretending not to notice each other's mouths. I cleared my throat. So, this is a strong commitment to party participation. Ethan. I stopped joking. Mara had that effect when she said my name without decoration. In the dimness, I could make out her face, the line of her cheek, the curve of one eyebrow, the nervous press of her lips. That was when I realized she wasn't as calm as she had looked. She was scared. Not of me, of what she was about to say. My chest tightened. Mara, I said, gentler this time. She leaned back against the shelves, then immediately knocked a board game off balance. A box slid down and bumped my shoulder. Perfect, she muttered. Seduction by falling Scrabble. I caught the box before it hit the floor. For the record, this is the most on-brand thing you've ever done. She laughed once, quiet and shaky. There it was, our rhythm. The little bridge we always built when the air got too honest. Except this time, she didn't cross back to safety. She looked at me and said, I picked you on purpose. I forgot how to hold the Scrabble box. Outside the door, Paige called, clock's running. Mara didn't answer, neither did I. My heart was punching at my ribs like it wanted out of the room before I could ruin anything. You picked my name, I said, because apparently my brain had become a court stenographer. No. She took one small step closer. I put your name in the bowl 4 times. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I might have said something I couldn't take back. That is deeply corrupt. I'm a designer. I understand layout and probability. You rigged a children's party game. I created an opportunity. For what? Her gaze dropped to my mouth. Just once. Quickly. But I saw it. Everything in me went still. When she looked back up, the banter was gone. For you to stop being noble, she said. That hit harder than it should have. I'm not noble. You are with me. I swallowed. The closet had gotten warmer, or maybe I had. My shoulder brushed a hanging coat when I shifted, and Mara's hand came up, not touching me at first, hovering near my chest like she was asking permission without words. I could have stepped back. I didn't. Her fingers rested lightly against my shirt, just over my heartbeat. Her breath caught. Wow, she whispered. What? You're not as calm as you pretend. I gave a weak smile. I have never pretended successfully in my life. That is a lie. You have pretended not to want me for months. The party outside might as well have disappeared. I stared at her. There are moments when a person hands you the truth and you realize how heavy it is. Not because you don't want it, because you do. Because you want it so badly you have no idea how to hold it without dropping everything else. Mara, I said, if we do this wrong, I know. You're my best friend. I know. I don't want 7 minutes if it costs me the rest of you. Her face changed, softened. For a second, she looked like I had reached straight past every joke she had sharpened over the years and touched the part of her she kept locked in a quieter room. Then she stepped closer until the toes of her boots met mine. Then don't treat it like 7 minutes, she said. My hand was still holding the Scrabble box against my side like an idiot. I set it carefully on top of a storage bin because apparently even in emotional crisis, I respected board game components. Mara smiled faintly. There he is, she whispered. Who? The man who makes room before he reaches. That did something to me. Something permanent. I lifted my hand and brushed a loose strand of hair away from her cheek. Her eyes closed for half a second, and the trust in that tiny movement nearly undid me. When she opened them, she said, "Start the clock, Ethan." My thumb rested near the corner of her mouth, and just as I leaned in, someone outside the closet said, loud enough for both of us to hear, "Wait, does Ethan know Mara's moving to Chicago?" The closet went so quiet I could hear the living room ice maker drop a fresh batch into the freezer. Mara's eyes opened all the way. My hand was still near her face. Her fingers were still pressed against my chest. In another version of that moment, we kissed and ruined ourselves beautifully. In the real version, I lowered my hand. "Chicago?" I said. Her mouth tightened. "That was not how I wanted you to find out." Outside, someone hissed, "Shut up, Paige," which told me exactly who had thrown the grenade. Mara closed her eyes and tipped her head back against the shelf. "I'm going to murder my sister with a charcuterie fork. That feels legally complicated. Worth it." I should have laughed. Usually I would have. But the word Chicago had landed between us like a third person in the closet, taller than both of us, already packing boxes. "When?" I asked. She looked at me again. "Maybe 6 weeks." "Maybe?" I got an offer. I took half a step back because standing close suddenly felt dangerous in a different way. A job offer. At a branding agency, bigger clients, better money, actual health insurance that doesn't feel like a dare. That sounds good. It is good. I nodded too many times like a dashboard ornament. "Good. Ethan." "No, I mean it." "That's great. You should. Of course you should." Her expression flinched, and I hated myself a little because there it was, my old talent for sounding supportive while quietly building a wall. She folded her arms, then unfolded them, then seemed annoyed at both choices. "This is exactly why I didn't tell you yet. Because I'd be happy for you? Because you'd put on that voice." "What voice?" "The voice where you turn into a polite airport announcement." I stared at her. She lifted her chin. "Attention passengers, Mara Whitfield will be leaving Gate Feelings. Ethan Brooks wishes her a pleasant journey and will now pretend he does not have a human heart." Against my will, a laugh broke through. She smiled, but it faded fast. The door suddenly opened 2 inches, spilling light across her face. Paige's eye appeared in the crack. "Everything okay?" Mara turned her head slowly. "Do you value your life?" Paige winced. Clock paused. "Paige." "Okay, love you, don't kill me. Also, the spinach dip is gone." The door shut again. Mara exhaled, and the absurdity of it almost saved us. Almost. I leaned back against the opposite wall, careful not to knock down any more board games. "Why tonight?" She looked down at the strip of light under the door. "Because I was going to tell you this week. Then Paige started this stupid game, and I realized if I waited until I had the perfect mature adult conversation, I'd keep waiting." "For the move?" "For you." That was worse. Better. Both. "Mara." "No, let me say it badly before I lose the nerve." She rubbed one hand over her forehead. "I didn't plan to trap you in a closet and emotionally mug you." "You kind of did." "I did rig the bowl, yes. 4 times. I panicked with ambition." I smiled despite the ache in my chest. Then she stepped close again, not as bold this time. More careful. Like she understood something had changed and was choosing me anyway. "I got the offer 3 days ago," she said. "I haven't accepted. I haven't declined. I've mostly been eating cereal out of a measuring cup and staring at my ceiling. You own bowls." They were emotionally unavailable. I breathed out a laugh, and she touched my wrist exactly where she had brushed me in the living room. "I wanted to know," she said, "if this thing between us is real before I make a decision that turns it into a beautiful little regret." The words went straight under my ribs. I looked at her hand on my wrist. Her thumb moved once, lightly over my pulse. "You think I'd ask you to stay?" I said. "No." "Then why?" "I think you'd never ask. And then I'd leave. And you'd send very brave texts about weather and restaurants and pretend we didn't almost become something." That shut me up because she had described me too accurately to argue. I thought of every night she had sat cross-legged on my floor, assembling design mock-ups while I edited audio, both of us complaining about clients, both of us pretending the silence between us wasn't the best part. I thought of her stealing my hooded sweatshirt during a Saturday hike and refusing to give it back because, according to her, your laundry detergent has emotional range. I thought of how much of my life had quietly arranged itself around her, not because she needed me, because I wanted her there. I don't know how to do this without being selfish, I said. Her face softened. That's the first honest thing you've said since Chicago. I want you to take the job if you want it. I know, and I want you to stay. Her eyes shone in the dim light. There, she whispered. My heart knocked hard. There what? That wasn't an airport announcement. I laughed, but it came out rough. The 7 minutes had long since stopped mattering. Outside the closet, the party was louder again, someone arguing about music, someone else groaning over a spilled drink. Inside, we were standing in the strange privacy of coats and dust and a future that suddenly had a deadline. Mara reached up and fixed the collar of my shirt. Not because it needed fixing, because she wanted an excuse to touch me, and we both knew it. You realize, I said, this is a terrible place to have the most important conversation of our friendship. It has winter coats and emotional support Scrabble. There's also a vacuum pressed into my calf. Romance is sacrifice. Her fingers lingered at my collar. I covered her hand with mine. That stopped both of us. She looked at our hands, then at me. I don't want you because you're convenient, she said quietly. You know that, right? I nodded, but she kept going. I don't want you because you fixed my drawer, or because you were nice after Travis, or because you listen. I mean, yes, all of that is unfairly attractive. Unfairly? You're annoyingly competent with small household disasters. I'm putting that on my dating profile. Don't you dare have a dating profile. The jealousy in her voice was quick, unplanned, and so human that it warmed me all the way through. Oh? I said. She narrowed her eyes. Do not make me confess feelings and threaten strangers in the same closet. I'm listening. She took a breath. I want you because when you laugh for real, you look surprised by it. Because you treat quiet like it's not empty. Because you notice the weird stuff, like how Paige hides the good crackers behind the cereal when she has company. Because you make people feel safe without making them feel small. That last line hit too close to the part of me I didn't show anyone. I had spent years being the steady one, the useful one. The guy who carried speakers, fixed sinks, edited late, remembered details, stayed reasonable. I didn't mind it most days. But Mara was the only person who ever made me wonder what would happen if I stopped performing calm and asked for something I wanted. And what I wanted was standing 6 inches away from me. I want you, I said. Her breath caught. Not as a reaction to Chicago, not as a last-minute panic. Not because you're leaving and suddenly you're rare. You were rare on a Tuesday at the laundromat when you yelled at that vending machine for stealing my quarters. It did steal your quarters. You called it a chrome bandit. It had a record. I smiled, then let the smile fade. I want you because I'm better when I'm honest with you. And I've been lying by, omission for a while. Mara's eyes searched mine. Then she lifted onto her toes and kissed me. It was not dramatic in the way people expect first kisses to be. No music swelled. No coats fell off hangers, though the vacuum did roll slightly into my ankle. It was soft at first. Careful. A question. Then I answered. I slid one hand to her waist and the other to the side of her neck, and the kiss deepened just enough to make my knees forget their job. Mara made a small sound against my mouth, half relief, half accusation, like she was mad at us for waiting this long. When we broke apart, her forehead rested against mine. Well, she whispered. I smiled. Strong? Party game? Paige will be unbearable. Paige already was. Mara laughed, and I felt it against me. For a few seconds, we just stood there, close and breathing, letting the friendship rearrange itself around the new shape of us. I didn't feel like I had lost my best friend. I felt like I had finally stopped standing outside the right door. Then the closet handle jiggled. Paige called, "Time's up, scandal people." Mara didn't move. Neither did I. Paige knocked twice. Also, just so you know, Mom and Dad got here early, and Mom is asking why Mara dragged Ethan into a closet like a Victorian kidnapper. Mara's eyes widened. I whispered, Your parents are here?" The door swung open before she could answer, and Mara's mother stood in the hallway holding a birthday gift bag, looking from my hand on her daughter's waist to Mara's flushed face. Then she smiled and said, "Well, I guess Chicago isn't the only announcement tonight." Mara's mother, Vivian Whitfield, had the kind of smile that could either welcome you into the family or identify where the body was buried. At that moment, I wasn't sure which version I was getting. My hand was still on Mara's waist. Mara's hand was still gripping my shirt. Paige stood behind her mother with a face that said she was both sorry and absolutely going to tell this story at holidays. I released Mara like the closet had caught fire. Mara, however, did not release me. She slid her hand down and laced her fingers through mine. It was such a small thing. Quiet. Deliberate. But in the hallway, under the soft yellow light, with her family watching and the whole party pretending not to watch, it felt louder than any confession we had made in the dark. Vivian's eyes dropped to our joined hands. "Well," she said, "that answers one question." Mara lifted her chin. "Does it?" "It answers why you've been reorganizing your entire apartment for 3 days instead of calling me back." "I was not reorganizing." Paige coughed. She alphabetized her spices. Mara shot her a look. "You eat shredded cheese out of the bag at midnight." "Careful," Paige pointed at me. "See? This is why Ethan fits here. He looks terrified but amused." "I am both," I admitted. That got a laugh from the hall, which made the situation worse and better. Mara's father, Alan, appeared behind Vivian carrying a six-pack of sparkling water and the expression of a man who had walked into the middle of a play without a program. "Why is everyone in the hallway?" he asked. Vivian said, "Mara and Ethan were in the closet." Alan blinked at me. "Voluntarily?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. It makes me feel like I should own a boat." Mara squeezed my fingers. That squeeze steadied me more than I wanted to admit. The living room had gone quiet in that fake way rooms do when everybody is listening with their entire skeleton. Paige's friends hovered by the snack table. Someone lowered the music. A man I barely knew pretended to inspect a coaster with academic focus. Mara looked at me once, and I saw the choice pass through her face. She could turn it into a joke. She could untangle our hands. She could protect the friendship by pretending. Instead, she stepped beside me, not in front of me, and said, "Ethan and I kissed." A woman near the kitchen whispered, "Finally." With the conviction of a church elder. My ears went hot. Paige threw both arms into the air. "I knew it!" "You did not know it," Mara said. "I put you two on the same trivia team every game night for a year. Because we win. Because Ethan stares at you whenever you explain rules." I opened my mouth, closed it, then said, "In my defense, she explains rules aggressively." Mara looked up at me. "You love that." I shouldn't have smiled at her in front of everyone like that, but I did. "I really do." The room made another sound, not teasing this time, warmer, like everybody had been holding a match near dry paper and somebody finally let it catch. For about 8 seconds, it felt perfect. Then Vivian said, "And Chicago?" The word changed the room again. Mara's fingers tightened around mine. Alan's face softened. "You told him." "Paige did," Mara said. Paige winced. In my defense, the game had gotten too successful. Nobody laughed much. Vivian looked at me, not unkindly. "Ethan, sweetheart, did you know she has to answer by Monday?" Monday. It was Friday evening. The hallway narrowed around me. Mara turned sharply to her mother. "I was going to tell him." "I know." Vivian's voice was gentle, but there was worry in it. "I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to understand whether you're making a life decision based on a kiss in a closet. That landed badly. Mara went still. I felt it through her hand. The protective part of me wanted to defend her. The honest part knew Vivian was asking what any mother would ask if her daughter had been restless, undecided, and suddenly holding hands with her younger best friend in a hallway full of gossip. So I didn't posture. I looked at Vivian and said, I don't want her to turn down something good because of me. Mara looked at me. I kept my eyes on her mother because if I looked at Mara, I might say the more selfish thing first. She worked hard for that offer, I said. I've heard about that agency for months, mostly through insults, but still. Mara's mouth twitched. I want her, I said, and the room went quiet enough that I heard Paige inhale. But I don't want to become the reason she makes herself smaller. Vivian's expression changed. Mara's hand trembled once in mine. Then Mara said softly, You don't get to decide what makes me smaller. I turned to her. There was no anger in her face. Not exactly. There was hurt, and under it, something braver. I know, I said. Do you? She asked. That was the second time that night she had sliced straight through my carefulness. I could have given her a noble answer. I had several in stock. I could have told her I'd support whatever she chose. That distance was manageable. That we'd be adults. All true. All incomplete. Instead, because the closet had apparently broken whatever filter I used to survive, I said, No, I'm trying. Her eyes softened. The party was watching, but the hallway shrank until there was only her. I don't know how to want you without feeling like I'm asking too much, I said. Mara's voice lowered. Then ask me what I want. I glanced around at the audience. She did not. So I swallowed every ounce of pride I owned and asked, What do you want? Mara looked at our hands, then up at me. I want you to stop stepping back every time I step forward, she said. I want to find out if this is real in actual daylight, not just in emergency closet lighting. I want the Chicago decision to be mine, not something we tiptoe around like a live wire. And I want, she breathed in, I want you to be brave enough to be inconvenient. That line struck me harder than any declaration could have. Not dramatic, not tidy. Brave enough to be inconvenient. I had built so much of my life around being easy to keep, easy to invite, easy to rely on, easy to lose, if necessary. Mara was asking me not to be easy. She was asking me to show up with weight. I nodded once. Okay. Her brow lifted. Okay. I want a date. Paige whispered, Oh my God. Mara did not look away from me. You do? Tomorrow. Not a group hang, not errands. Not you pretending you need help choosing printer paper. That was one time, and specialty paper matters. A real date, I said. Somewhere with chairs we didn't assemble ourselves. Her smile came slowly like sunrise finding a window. And Chicago, she asked. Still yours, I said, but I'm not going to pretend I don't hope your future has room for me in it. Vivian pressed a hand to her chest. Alan muttered, I like him. Paige said, I liked him first. Mara laughed, and then she did something that made the whole room disappear again. She rose onto her toes and kissed me, in the hallway. Not long, not showy. Just enough to tell everyone that whatever had happened in the closet had not stayed there. When she pulled back, her cheeks were pink, but her eyes were steady. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. Paige clapped once. Great. Now that we've completed the romantic uprising, can we return to my birthday? The party relaxed around us, laughter spilling back in, music rising, Vivian hugging Mara with one arm, while still holding the gift bag in the other. For the next hour, Mara and I were not alone. And maybe that was good. We stood too close by the counter. We kept bumping shoulders. Once, she stole a cherry tomato off my plate and held my gaze while eating it like she knew exactly what she was doing. I said, That was my tomato. She said, Friendship tax has evolved. Into what? She leaned near my ear. Interest. I nearly dropped my plate. But underneath the teasing, Monday waited. I saw it when Vivian touched Mara's cheek by the hallway. I saw it when Alan asked practical questions about relocation costs. I saw it when Mara's smile faded for half a second while Paige showed her birthday photos. At 10, I helped clean up because I am physically incapable of leaving a kitchen messy if I know where the trash bags are. Mara found me rinsing serving spoons. "You're stress washing," she said. "I'm fine." "You are scrubbing hummus off stainless steel like it owes you money." I shut off the faucet. She leaned against the counter beside me, hip touching the cabinet, her sleeve brushing my arm. "You don't have to solve tonight," she said. "I know. And you don't have to be impressive tomorrow." "That's unfortunate. I rented a horse." Her laugh was immediate and real, and I felt proud in a way that embarrassed me. Then she grew quiet. "I'm scared," she said. I dried my hands slowly. "Of Chicago?" "Of choosing wrong." She looked at me. "Of choosing right and still hurting someone." I turned toward her. "Mara, if you go, I'll be hurt. I won't lie about that. But I won't punish you for having a life." She studied me. Then her hand found mine under the edge of the counter, hidden from the room. "I know," she whispered. "That's one of the reasons this is so hard." Before I could answer, Paige walked in carrying empty glasses. "Oh," she said, stopping short. Mara and I separated like guilty teenagers, which was ridiculous because we were adults and had already been publicly kissed into evidence. Paige looked between us, then held up her phone. "Mara," she said carefully, "the Chicago agency just emailed you." Mara froze. Paige turned the screen toward her. Even from where I stood, I could read the subject line. "Updated offer. Response needed tonight." For one dumb second, I thought Paige meant her own phone. She didn't. She was holding Mara's. Apparently, Mara had left it on the entry table between a stack of birthday cards and somebody's half-finished hard cider. Paige had grabbed it when it buzzed 3 times in a row, probably expecting a harmless message. Instead, the future had lit up the screen. Mara took the phone like it weighed more than it should. Her face changed as she read. "What does it say?" Paige asked. Mara didn't answer right away. I stayed by the sink with my hands damp and useless. Finally, Mara said, "They moved the signing bonus up. They'll cover relocation. But they need my answer by midnight because their second choice candidate has another offer." Paige whispered, "That's aggressive." "It's business," Mara said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. I looked at the clock on the microwave. 10:14. Less than 2 hours. That was the thing about real life. It had a rude habit of bringing paperwork to emotional breakthroughs. Mara's eyes found mine. No audience now, no closet, no hallway full of people making noises, like we were a limited series they'd been waiting to binge. Just us, a wet serving spoon, and an email with a deadline. I dried my hands on a towel. "Do you want to step outside?" She nodded. Paige backed out of the kitchen like she was defusing a bomb. "I will tell Mom nobody is allowed to form opinions for at least 15 minutes." "Make it 20, Mara said. Paige pointed at her. "Bold of you to assume this family can go that long." Mara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We left, through the back door, onto Paige's little patio. The night was cool and clear. No cinematic storm, no dramatic rain trying to do our emotional work for us. Just a square of concrete, 2 folding chairs, a potted basil plant that had given up on life, and the distant hum of traffic. Mara sat on the low brick step. I sat beside her close enough that our knees touched. She stared at the phone in her hands. "This is absurd." "Which part?" "All of it." She laughed once without humor. "I pick you for 7 minutes in heaven like a lunatic, kiss you in a closet, announce us to half a living room, and then corporate America kicks in the door with a deadline." To be fair, Paige kicked in the door first. That got me a real smile, small, but alive. Then she leaned sideways, resting her shoulder against mine. That simple weight nearly broke me. I had wanted Mara in dramatic ways, sure. I was a man with a pulse and eyes. But more than that, I had wanted this, the casual trust of her leaning on me when everything got loud. I wanted to be the person she didn't have to perform around. Tell me what you're thinking, I said. I'm thinking if I say yes, I leave. She looked down. If I say no, I'll always wonder if I got scared. Of the job? Of becoming someone bigger than the version of myself I know how to manage. I turned slightly. Mara, you're already bigger than what you know how to manage. She gave me a look. That sentence barely makes sense. It made sense in my head. Was it crowded in there? Very, lots of panic furniture. She laughed, and her hand found mine between us. Not hidden this time. She laced our fingers together on the step. I don't want to lose tonight, she said. You won't. You can't promise that. No, I admitted. I can promise I won't treat tonight like a temporary malfunction. Her thumb stilled against mine. I took a breath. It felt like stepping off a curb without knowing how far down the street was. I don't want to be your almost, I said. I don't want to be the guy you kissed before your life started somewhere else. And I don't want you staying here because I finally developed courage under closet conditions. She looked at me, eyes bright. So, what do you want? I want us to make room for both truths. My voice was quieter than I expected. You may need to go. I want to be with you. Those things don't cancel each other out unless we decide they do. Mara stared at me like she was trying to catch me pretending. I didn't look away. I can visit, I said. You can come back. We can be very annoying with calendars. I can look for audio work there if we get serious enough for that conversation. Or you may decide Chicago isn't right after all. But I don't want distance to become the excuse I use because I'm scared to be chosen. Her lips parted slightly, then she said, You said if we get serious enough? I winced. Too much? No. Her voice softened. Say the other part. What other part? The part where you don't hide behind logistics. My heart started punching again. I looked at our joined hands, then at her face. I'm falling in love with you, I said. The words came out plain. No poetry, no grand speech. Just the truth, finally standing where I had made it wait. Mara went completely still. For one terrifying second, I thought I had ruined everything by being too much, too soon, too inconvenient. Then she squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. You absolute coward, she whispered. I blinked. That was not the response I expected. I have been waiting months for you to say something reckless, and you wait until there's a relocation package involved. I like complexity. You like emotional traffic cones. I'm improving. She laughed, but tears had gathered in her eyes. Then she turned toward me fully, both knees brushing mine. I'm falling in love with you too, she said, which is extremely inconvenient, and I resent how happy it makes me. That was the moment, not the closet, not even the kiss. That was when the friendship stopped being a safe room we were afraid to leave and became the foundation under something braver. I reached for her cheek, and this time there was no interruption, no door opening, no family commentary from the hall. Mara met me halfway. The kiss was deeper than the first one. Slower. Less surprised. It had the relief of finally admitting what we had been carrying and the ache of knowing admission didn't solve everything. Her hand slid to the back of my neck. Mine settled at her waist. And before anyone expects me to narrate the rest like I'm trying to get us banned from decent society, we were on a brick step at her sister's house with her parents 20 feet away and a basil plant dying beside us. Restraint was not optional. But the kiss still changed the night. When we pulled apart, Mara rested her forehead against mine. I need to answer them, she said. I know. I don't know what answer yet. Then don't use me as the answer. She pulled back just enough to look at me. I swallowed. Use me as the person sitting beside you while you tell the truth. Her face crumpled a little, not in sadness exactly, but in relief. She looked back at the phone and opened the email. I watched her read it again, slower this time, the light reflecting in her eyes. What's the truth? I asked. She exhaled. The truth is, I want the job, she said. but I don't want a company that pressures me into uprooting my life with less than 2 hours' notice after they gave me until Monday. That's fair. The truth is, I want Chicago as an opportunity, not as an ultimatum. Also fair. And the truth is, she looked at me. I want tomorrow's date. I smiled. The horse is non-refundable. Cancel the horse. Fine, but he'll be devastated. She leaned in and kissed me once, quick and warm. Email first, horse grief later. Then she began typing. I didn't read over her shoulder. I looked out at the small yard, at the string lights along the fence, at the basil plant making a brave final stand. I held her hand while she wrote with the other. After a few minutes, she read it aloud. Thank you for the updated offer. I'm grateful and excited by the possibility of joining the team. I also take relocation seriously, and I won't make that decision under a sudden deadline. If Monday is still possible, I'll give you a thoughtful answer then. If you need someone willing to say yes tonight regardless of circumstances, I understand, and I wish you the best. She lowered the phone. That's good, I said. It's terrifying. Also good. She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Mara set the phone face down on the step, turned to me, and gave a shaky little smile. So, she said, about that date. You still want it? Her expression grew serious. Ethan, I want tomorrow. I want Monday. I want the messy calendar version. I want to know what you look like in my life when we aren't hiding behind jokes and other people's snack tables. My throat tightened. I'm right here, I said. I know. She touched the side of my face. That's what scares me. The back door opened behind us. We both turned. Paige stood there holding 2 cupcakes, one in each hand, with Vivian peering over her shoulder and Alan pretending he wasn't. Paige looked at our faces, then at Mara's phone. Well? She asked. Mara picked up the phone just as it buzzed in her hand. One new email. She read the sender and all the color drained from her face. It's them, she said. They already answered. Mara held the phone like it might bite her. Paige froze with the cupcakes. Vivian whispered, Do you want privacy? Mara looked at me first. Not her mother, not Paige, not the email, me. That look did more than any dramatic speech could have. It said we were already becoming a place she turned. Stay, she said. So I stayed. She opened the email and read silently. Her eyebrows drew together, then lifted. The color came back into her face in pieces. Well? Paige demanded, because patience had never been issued to that family. Mara let out a breath that almost became a laugh. They apologized. Paige blinked. Corporate people do that? Apparently in writing. Mara read aloud, We understand your concern and respect your need for time. Monday remains acceptable. We hope you'll still consider joining us. Alan from behind Paige muttered, Good answer. Vivian smiled. Better than I expected. Mara lowered the phone to her lap. For a second, nobody moved. Then Paige thrust a cupcake at her. Decision dessert. Mara took it automatically. This has a candle hole in it. Birthday parties are war. Paige handed me the other cupcake. You too, you survived the closet and mom. I heard that, Vivian said. I meant it lovingly. Mara looked over at me, cupcake in hand, eyes still bright from adrenaline and tears and relief. So I have until Monday. You have until Monday, why? I said. And tomorrow. You have tomorrow, her mouth curved. With you. With me. Paige made a gagging noise, but Vivian put a hand over her own smile, and Alan said, Let the man eat his cupcake before another announcement happens. I did not eat the cupcake. Mara leaned over and stole a bite from mine first. Seriously? I said. She shrugged. Interest. That was the first time I realized we weren't going back. The next morning, I picked her up at 11. I did not rent a horse. I did, however, take her to the little riverside market she always claimed was too charming to trust. We walked past flower stalls and handmade soap and a guy selling wooden spoons with the intensity of a prophet. Mara bought a tiny ceramic dish shaped like a sardine because she said it looked judgmental in a useful way. That was our first real date. Not fancy, not perfect, better. We ate lunch from a food cart on a bench by the water. She got sauce on her sleeve and accused me of witnessing it too tenderly. You're looking at me like this is adorable, she said. It is. It's barbecue sauce. It's narrative texture. She tried not to smile and failed. Later, while we walked, her hand found mine without ceremony. No closet, no game, no audience. Just her fingers threading through mine in daylight. I looked down at our hands. She bumped my shoulder. You okay? Yeah. You look like someone just handed you a fragile bird. That is not inaccurate. Her teasing softened. Then she stopped beside the railing and faced me. The river moved behind her, gray-blue under the afternoon sun, and the wind loosened a strand of hair near her cheek. I'm still scared, she said. Me too. But not enough to pretend. No. She nodded once, like that was the answer she needed, then kissed me right there by the railing, in front of strangers, food carts, and one deeply judgmental ceramic sardine in her tote bag. On Monday, Mara accepted the Chicago job. I won't pretend it didn't hurt. It did. But the hurt was clean, not poisoned by silence. We made plans like adults and panicked like amateurs. She moved 6 weeks later. I helped pack her apartment, including the warped kitchen drawer I had fixed badly enough that she kept it as evidence of my early work. The night before she left, we ate takeout on her living room floor surrounded by boxes, and she handed me the Scrabble set from Paige's closet. I stole it, she said. That's a felony in some families. Paige said we earned custody. Inside the box, Mara had tucked a note. 4 emergencies, declarations, and probability crimes. I kept it on my bookshelf. Long distance was not cinematic. It was delayed flights, bad video calls, missed signals, and one truly disastrous attempt to watch the same movie at the same time when my internet froze on an image of a man screaming into soup. But it was also Mara sending me sketches of signs she hated on her commute. It was me mailing her the kazoo she had once given me, with a note that said, "For private courage only." It was 2 people learning that love was not proven by never being inconvenient. Sometimes it was proven by staying kind when inconvenience showed up with a suitcase. 3 months in, I flew to Chicago for a long weekend. She met me outside baggage claim in a charcoal coat, hands in her pockets, trying to look casual and failing completely. I walked toward her. She said, "Do not make a scene." So I made a small one. I kissed her until a man behind me said, "Good for you, buddy," and Mara laughed against my mouth like happiness had finally caught her off guard. By the following spring, my studio offered me remote contract work. Not forever, not guaranteed, but enough to try. I moved to Chicago with 2 suitcases, 3 microphones, and the Scrabble box wrapped in a towel. Mara made room in her apartment by clearing one shelf and labeling it Ethan's emotional support cables. I proposed a year after that night. Not in a closet. We had both agreed that would be too obvious and also mildly concerning. I proposed at Paige's next birthday party in the same living room after dinner when Paige announced she would never again host 7 Minutes in Heaven because some people took it too seriously. Mara was laughing when I stood up. Then she saw my face. The room went quiet. I told her I had spent too long believing love meant being easy to lose. I told her she had taught me that asking to be chosen was not selfish if you were willing to choose back with your whole life. Then I opened the Scrabble box. The ring was inside, resting on a row of tiles that spelled, "Start the clock." Mara covered her mouth. Paige burst into tears first, which annoyed Mara because she liked winning. "Yes," Mara said, before I could even get down on one knee properly. "Yes, you ridiculous man." Vivian claimed later that I cried. I maintain there was dust. Emotional dust, maybe, but dust. We got married in a small brick venue with big windows and terrible parking. Mara wore ivory, Paige gave a speech that was mostly threats disguised as blessings, and Alan did, in fact, mention that he still did not own a boat. Now, when people ask how Mara and I finally got together, she says she selected me through strategic party logistics. I say my wife rigged a children's game and changed my life. Both are true. Some evenings after work, we sit at our kitchen table in Chicago with takeout between us and the Scrabble box nearby. Mara still steals food from my plate. I still pretend to be offended. Sometimes she looks at me across the table with that same dangerous calm she had in Paige's living room. And I remember the click of that closet door, the dark, her hand over my heartbeat, and the moment she asked me to stop being noble and start being honest. And every time, I am grateful she locked the door. What would you have done if your best friend rigged 7 minutes in heaven, locked you in a closet, and told you to start the clock? And have you ever almost lost someone because both of you were too afraid to say what was really there? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.